So, hello everyone. My name is Varinia Bernau. I'm an editor at the innovation desk at WirtschaftsWoche. And I hope that you got some energy in the lunch break for our next panel, which is about entrepreneurship. And I have 4 wonderful female entrepreneurs with me on stage. The first one, I don't have to introduce her, is Jessica Federer. You heard her speaking, you heard her introduce herself and got an idea what she stands for. So give a warm welcome to Jessica. Then we have Anna Alex. I never know if I should switch into English when presenting German names. So Anna, come on stage. Anna is a co-founder of Outfittery, a personal online shopping assistant for men. The platform was launched in 2012 and now serves, I think, outfits for more than 500,000 men in 8 different countries. And prior to Outfittery, Anna worked for Zalando and Rocket Internet. And her advice for founders is don't be shy. And be sure to focus on your current challenge, because solving all your problems at once won't work. So, welcome, Anna. Then we have Stacia Carr. Please come on stage. Stacia is head of an engineering team at Zalando. And prior to that, in 2014, I think, you came from the US to Madrid as a technical co-founder of a real-time video platform for the industry of health and fitness. So she knows big companies and smaller companies. And throughout her career, she has led various teams of engineers. And she says, as an entrepreneur, technologies are an important tool to solve problems. Our job as entrepreneurs is to find the right problems to solve and to define the role technology can play in that. And last but not least, Miriam Wohlfarth, which is founder and managing director of RatePay, one of the most successful fintechs in Germany, with more than 120 employees now and a yearly turnover of more than 1 billion euro per year. And Miriam started in the travel industry in early 2000 and then moved on to the online payment industry. She worked for the Royal Bank of Scotland, so she knows big corporate as well, and decided to start RatePay in 2009. And her advice for founders, we've already heard that advice this morning, is be brave. Don't be shy, just go for it. And that's a perfect introduction to our panel. During the last year, 309,000 people in Germany decided to found a company, which is the lowest number within the 7 last years. So I think we have to encourage people to found a company, to be entrepreneurs, share some success stories. And one aspect which seems crucial to me is, as you said, courage. So Miriam, between you and me and couple of ladies out there, what was the biggest mistake in your career so far?
Actually, there have not been so many mistakes. That's good. So I wouldn't be here if I made so many mistakes, but I had a lot of turnarounds in my career. The biggest mistake, maybe when, let's say, starting RatePay, starting the company, my first founding, my co-founder team, that was not so perfect. Let's say that, and I would say, yeah, after like 1 year, after 1.5 years, I was by myself. So that was not so easy. So to think back, what would I do differently? I would probably look deeper into the skills of my co-founders and really verify that these skills are also there. Yeah, that is a mistake that I learned from. So take a really, really close look at the people you do start a company with.
Yeah. Any lessons we can learn from you ladies? What does it take to get back on your feet when you were tumbling?
So maybe one point to this question, like about the biggest mistake. I often get that from press, right? So what was your biggest mistake and so on. And like, to be completely honest, I don't like to answer this question a lot, because for me, I think what I did right was not focusing on the mistakes too much, right?
Yeah.
And like, of course, you need to learn from your mistakes and from your failures and so on. But in the end, you need to be very positive and like be courageous throughout all these years and not let yourself down by doing mistakes. And you will, if you found your own company, you will do tons of mistakes, but that doesn't matter, as long as you just move on, right? So, yeah, that's my not mistake that I did on that.
And since we're talking about the right spirit, especially in the technology sector, everyone tells you move fast. So I'd like to know from you, don't you sometimes feel exhausted? And what do you do at that point to focus and to move on?
Do something else. I think taking breaks is really important for a number of different reasons. I think Jessica mentioned taking care of yourself first, and also really thinking about how to create resources for your own creativity, right? So we don't run on, you can't be creative and run on empty, and particularly as entrepreneurs, a lot of our job is solving problems that you didn't predict, and you need fuel in order to do that. So I think taking time off and or do something, take a role that you never expected yourself to take, just to change mindset, I think is critical, because it's not a linear progression at all. And if you think it's going to be a linear progression, yeah, you will find out very quickly that it's not. Yeah.
Jessica, you talked earlier to us about your experience at Bayer. Since we are talking about the team spirit, when you felt that employees over there felt exhausted or frustrated or out of focus, what did you do to inspire and convince them?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, what do you do to relax? I was going to say, go have a drink. To inspire, sorry, still the plain air.
There's some water down there.
I think to inspire and convince people, you have to listen and understand them. So it's not a one-way street. When people are trying to convince me, they just talk at me. But when they listen to where my perspective is and where my concerns are, they're better able to address that. And I try to do the same with others, is listen. If you want to convince them, listen to them and find out what's important to them. And that's the easiest way to convince them, is understanding.
Okay. And since you were mentioning your partner at your startup letting you down, and I've noticed that all three of you have founded in a team. So, and Anna, I read an interview where you were surely talking about mistakes as well, but you were talking about some other point you said. Or your advice for founders was to take time to find the right partner for the project to start with. You co-founded Outfittery with Julia Bösch, who you knew from your time at Rocket Internet, so you knew her well. But yeah, I would like to dig a little bit deeper into that. What are the advantages of founding in a team? And maybe you two can share your experience as well. How do you find the right partner?
Yeah, I think so. If you have the right partner, there's a big advantage of founding in a team, because you have a person you can trust to. You can like talk about everything with this person, and even in times that you have doubts, you have hard times and so on. And it's just great to have someone by your side who you can be completely honest with, as long as it is the right partner. So if it's a wrong partner, kind of, and the relationship is maybe not that deep, or there isn't that deep level of trust, it could be rather negative, actually, to try to fix a not functioning founding team instead of focusing on the market or on your product that you're building. So I must say, I think I was very lucky as well to have found Julia, and we are now working together for almost 6 years, and I think it's more intense than a marriage, to be honest. I see her at least more often, like over the last years, than my husband. So how to find the right partner? So there's a good proportion of luck in that, but as well to be open and meet people, go out there, be interested as well in people, not judging like too fast, and really maximize just the contact of people you have with. And in our case, it was, as you said, we met actually both working at Zalando, we met there. So working in a company is a good place to find a founding partner, as well as a good place to find a husband or so, right? I think
good advice
on the marriage market, it's like this, but as well, I think in the broader network. So there. Other than that, there's no secret to it.
But should the person be complementary to your skill set, or something you might feel more comfortable with?
Yeah, that's a good question. So in our case, I think we are in our skills, we're very complementary, but like person-wise and interested-wise, we're like the same mind. So we're interested in the same things and are thinking in a similar way in that sense. So I think it makes it easier if this person is not coming from a completely different world. So that is one thing. And I mean, competencies-wise, I must say, I mean, now almost 6 years ago when we started our company, back then I thought I know a lot. Now I know I didn't know anything back then. Okay. So most of the skills when you develop over time, most of the skills you develop while founding, while running your company. So in that sense, you just need to split like the competence and split the areas within a company, and then you learn along the way. So it doesn't need to be like perfectly competency set from the very beginning. I'd say. Yeah.
Stacia and Miriam, what about you? How did you find your co-founder?
So I got a phone call or an email from somebody who said, I know this guy in Spain, and he has a really interesting idea, and I think you can help him. And I was living at home in California at the time, and I thought, okay. And we literally started a collaboration over Google Hangouts. And it worked so well that at some point I said, hey, are you looking for a co-founder? He's more on the business side. I'm coming more from the technology side. And so we kind of built off that. And before I made the leap to come to Europe, he came to San Francisco, and we worked together a little bit back and forth. And for us, this was, I think the try before you buy was really important. And I would highly recommend that. If you're looking for a co-founder, find a small project to work on with that person, because you get to know them through working together. What was challenging for us, I think, as we got further down the path, was recognizing that our cultural backgrounds were so different, that our expectations around fundraising, how much money do we spend before we actually stop working on the project, were quite different. So him coming from a Spanish European, you don't spend that much, we need to see numbers first. And I'm coming from this Valley perspective of like, no, this is a great idea, we just need to put money into it. So we wrestled with that, and in the end, I think, we decided to stop working on our project together, but it was a great learning for me, because I realized, like, I didn't think to have that conversation with him up front. I was really excited about the opportunity, and I had always wanted to live in Europe, so I just kind of took the leap, and I don't regret that at all. But the advice I would give based on that learning is, have the hard conversations about money, all the tough things that people typically struggle over, have those up front and see where they go, and try to work together on something small before you really commit. That would be my feedback.
I see.
Yeah, for us it was quite interesting. So when I lost my co-founders, let's say it like this, I called our investor and I asked him for help. I said, I really need help, because I'm not able to run this company all by myself, because I'm not really good in, let's say, financials. And I'm really good in product thinking and innovation and in the, let's say, in the product itself, but I'm not good in running a company, especially in the financial industry. Yeah, we need somebody that is really, really good at the financials. So they sent me let's say, a consultant, And I was, you know, if you look at him, I don't know, we're really, really different people actually. But we worked then together for half a year. Actually, he was supposed to stay only for a couple of months. And now he's sitting there with me now since 6.5 years as my co-managing director. And he's the CEO actually today. And we have a really, really different skill set, I would say that. So he's a really structured guy. He's really, I always say that he's like the head and the brain, and I'm like the stomach and everything else, and the going out and let's say the creator of new products. And that is really, I think it's a really successful combination where I think it's also a lot about diversity, because we have really different mindsets, and it helps us also understand a lot what our consumer needs, because I always think the consumer is male and female, they have different things, and Jesper, my co-managing director, he's really the other half, yeah, and that's really good. I think it's a really good combination.
And since you were mentioning that money, of course, is one of the tough topics, and this is another key factor for founders and entrepreneurs to be successful as well. Miriam, you stumbled upon your idea of RatePay in 2009 at the height of the financial crisis, when it was extremely difficult to get venture capital. Would you say that this was an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, today, I mean, what we're doing today, it's like fintech. Fintech today is a hype theme. Yeah, probably today it would be easier to get seed money. At that time, it was really difficult. And we didn't, well, it took us more than almost a year to really get money. And maybe that was also one of the reasons why I lost the co-founders. Yeah, it was really really different times. And then, we found a corporate company, the Otto Group, that invested in us at that time, because they really saw that the product itself was a product that has a good future. And today, I think it's much easier. I would think it's easier to get money. Yes, because there are many more VCs today. At that time, there were not so many VCs, and also that this topic was just not interesting for them.
But would you say that more VC means that maybe founders, you described the different spirit between Silicon Valley and Europe, that maybe you just go for it and you're not really focused on your idea?
No, I think you have to focus on your idea, and you have to really and you also have to focus a lot on the numbers. But I think when you focus clearly on what you want, why you want it, why this is your passion, and when you have a good, let's say, thinking about and you have all the numbers available, and you give them a good feeling, I think it's easier to get money today. Yeah.
Okay. And you sold your company in August to private equity companies, so quite recently. Was it difficult for you to give your baby into the hands of others?
Well, we already gave it in the hands of others to the Otto Group a couple of years ago, but so it was already more or less in the hands of others. And many people asked me at that time, how could you ever do that? Why did you sell it to the Otto Group? It was your baby, you know? Actually, I started this company because I really believed in an idea that we wanted to build something, and I never thought of becoming richer. So I was really crazy about this idea. And I wanted to create an environment where I want to work with something that I love. And this was the reason why RatePay actually was born. It was not about getting rich. Yeah. That I have to say that, because then we sold to the Otto Group in 2011, and everybody said to me, how can you sell your company? Yes, you know, and I said, actually, I just sold it because I needed money, and I want to have a future for this company. I still want to work there because I love this company. I really love what I'm doing. And this was in the last years, but so RatePay has become really, really successful in the last years. We are profitable. We have a license, a small banking license. We have many people. We earn a lot of money now already. It's unbelievable if you look at this. But also, I think in the last year, the last 1.5 years, we got a lot of let's say private equity companies have been attracted by us. No, other way around. They liked us. They started talking to us, and we always had to say, okay, we have to speak with the Otto Group if they are willing to do that. And they were really, let's say, they really supported us also in doing that, because the area that we are working in is really a regulated financial area that is not really so good for a normal merchant, let's say it like this. And
So-
for us, and now it's not my company. I mean, I have now maybe different kind of possibilities to earn in the future on it, but still it's not about the money. It's just about the spirit and the thing that you love doing something that you like.
So Anna, would selling Outfittery be an option for you?
Sorry, what?
Would selling Outfittery be an option for you?
Sorry.
I
I really didn't get the question. No, I mean, so over the last years, we've raised 5 rounds of funding. So we have investors in who at some point want their money back. So that's the path you take if you take on venture capital. So yes, sure, but currently not.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, because I was wondering, maybe it's a myth that founders always think of their company like they want to control everything, and maybe at some point it's the better way to put it in the hands of others where the baby can grow to a child. What do you think in the German startup scene?
Well, RatePay is not controlled by our investors. It's, I mean, as long as when you are successful and you earn money, then they don't control you so much. It's not that somebody is sitting there, and we do have a lot of freedom. Yeah, so it's just that somebody is there in case that we really want to grow and we want to do something else. I think it's good to have a strong partner on your side. It can help you also to develop it further.
I actually think, I mean, if you're founding a startup which is then growing fast, like most of the times the company is at some point growing faster than the people. And I think as a founder, you as well need to, it's your duty to reflect yourself as well. Are you still the right person doing that? So how do you find talent which is like carrying on? You can't like in such a, if you then have a big company, you can't like do everything on your own. You can't carry all this responsibility. You really need great people. And if it requires to step back a little bit, that's then the right path for the company. So I think it's, if you always need to do the best, what's best for the company, and that's what, like in that sense, I think it's really true that you always say it's your baby in that sense, right? Because you always want to do what's best for your baby, and if that's what's required, that could be a path as well, yeah.
I'd like to get your opinion on that point, Stacia, because you're working with Zalando, a company we often think of as a startup, but which now has 13,000 employees. So I would like to get your perspective. How do you manage to stay agile when growing from a startup to a big company?
So I think Zalando had a couple of different phases in its development. So it went through a period, I wasn't there for this, but as the legend goes, they had to professionalize after kind of their first growth spike. And what ended up happening was a lot of the entrepreneurial people, and maybe Anna was one of them, ended up leaving. And the founders, who are quite entrepreneurial themselves, said, this is not what we want for our company. And how do we shift the culture so that we can retain an entrepreneurial spirit? And so they've spent a lot of energy looking at the structure of the organization and how to create environments where people like me, who have an entrepreneurial background and an entrepreneurial drive, can actually drive projects and products in a way that benefits the customer. So really creating a lot of autonomy and but also accountability. So I run a team of 13 people. We're focused on the size and fit problem in fashion. There's a bunch of other startups that are also tackling this. And I present every quarter a report that is probably similar to what you would end up bringing to your VCs. So there's a lot of freedom, and I have access to a lot of resources, but I'm also held accountable for the performance of what I build. And I think it's taken Zalando a while to get there, but they knew from the beginning they wanted to keep this spirit. That's how they were going to continue to grow in a way that they wanted. And through iterations and a lot of mistakes, I think they're doing a pretty good job, actually. And we've opened up the platform. We have a program called Zalando Build, which actually is it's a gateway for startups to come and leverage the traffic that we have to run their products on our platform. So I will actually compete on my own platform with other startups working in the ecosystem, which is a little bit interesting. But again, it's this real deep commitment to entrepreneurial spirit and culture.
And talking about entrepreneurial spirit in a big company, Jessica, you came to Bayer, a company which is more than 150 years old, very traditional, and you had to, well, digitalize, change the company. So, from your perspective, how important is entrepreneurship for big companies? Because we often think of entrepreneurs as startup founders, and we heard from you that it is important for big companies as well. So what is your perspective on that?
I think if you want to stay in business, entrepreneurship is important for you, regardless of the size of your company. Because that continual evolution and creativity and embracing the new and evolving, that applies to all of our businesses, big or small. So it's a challenge, though, as you start to become a much larger institution, because by nature, entrepreneurship is something disruptive and different. And if you want to be scalable, you need to have some systematic processes that stay in place to standardize. And so the challenge we're seeing now is some of the startups that are trying to look to big companies to say, how do I globalize and standardize and become institutional? And then the big companies are looking to the startups to say, how do I get more entrepreneurship and be more agile? So right now, it's really those two fields coming together, learning from each other. So I think we have a lot of space to still discover how to do that best.
And your advice to motivate people is to listen to them and try to
probably. I think listening, I know I'm a talkative American telling people to listen. That sounds funny, but it's the fastest way to get to your end goal, is to listen to that person and find out what they care about and just answer that question.
Okay. Talking about listening, a couple of weeks ago, two female entrepreneurs called Penelope Gazing and Kate Dwyer from the online shop Witchy, they shared their story about some subtle sexism they have received because they never get the response they wanted to get. So what they did was they invented their male co-founder, Keith, to answer all the big things. And this leads me to the question, what was the most offending sentence you've heard from an investor, a business partner, where you were like, we're in the 21st century, come on. Any story to share on that?
I think the most, I'll go
Is this our hashtag #MeToo moment?
So the most offensive thing I've heard is silence. So just literally being ignored. So I'm at the table with my male co-founder, and it's like I'm just not there. And I think for most people, this is probably one of the most challenging things to just not be acknowledged. And it's, in a way, to me, I would rather have the sentence, because then at least you know what you're dealing with. But to be there and not be able to, not feel like you're acknowledged or part of the discussion is, I find personally really painful. And so the trick is, how do you find ways that are comfortable for you to insert yourself and at the end of the day walk away and feel like you did what you needed to do, and the rest of it you just have to let go of.
We've been invited to of a big company to some gala event where they have are celebrating entrepreneurship and so on and so forth, and there were some finalists, and we were among the finalists. And then at some point the finalists were asked to come to another room to prepare for stage and so on. So Julia and I went there, and at the door we were stopped because they said, oh no, it's not for the +1s now, it's only for the finalists. And this happened twice. The first door, they wanted to stop us, and then the second door again. So that was quite interesting.
How was your reaction?
Of course, we explained them that we are finalists and not just +1s.
I never had anything like this. Never had any experience like this, to be honest. Only when I was younger, maybe in my early 20s or so. that I had like experiences where I felt only strange, but in the last years, never. Maybe it's because I'm in the niche industry. It's also different. I'm really in the niche industry where you know all the people and you have been working with them, and you know you got a name in the industry, and it's more or less that nobody really says, "Oh, you're a woman" or "You're a man." Nobody cares actually, to be honest. That's how I feel.
Okay, so I'm happy with to hear that. But to go on to another topic, we were talking quite a lot during this conference, which is the importance of coding skills. And Stacia, you are leading a team of engineers. How many women are on your team at Zalando?
So I currently have a mixed team, and I have data scientists and research engineers, and I have, of the 2 data scientists, one of them is a woman, and we're bringing in a female research engineer, so of the 4 research engineers, 1 will be female. Yeah, was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay, so the numbers are not great, but within my team, I think the topic of size and fit is actually, it's very relatable for a lot of people, but women in particular really understand what the impact of this could be. Mm-hmm. And when we interview female candidates, immediately we give them the choice: do you want search, personalization, sizing? 9 times out of 10, if we hire them, they're interested in sizing. So I feel like that again, going back to the niche topic, you can find places where that I think are easier to attract female talent, but everybody's after all of them. It's hard.
And what would you say, how important are coding skills really in a world which is driven by technology?
I think technical fluency is really important. So actually it depends on what you want to do with your career. Being able to write lines of code, I think, is less important than actually understanding how technology works. And then zeroing in on, for the business case that you're interested in or the space you want to play in, what are the current technologies being used? How do they work? What is the long-term trajectory of those technologies? And the more comfortable you are in your own understanding of those pieces, the better you will do. So you could have really great coding skills, but not actually understand how to apply them, and it wouldn't really matter. And I think your credibility will be built based on your knowledge of the problem space you're working in, and then how to apply those technologies to that problem space.
What is the perspective of the other ladies? Because you are successful in the broader tech sector, but you don't have an engineering background. So
for me, it's, to be honest, I'm like deep in my heart, I'm very jealous with everyone who knows how to code, because I can't. But I think it always forced me to find people doing it for me. And this is then, again, something that you need, a skill you need as an entrepreneur. You can't do everything yourself. You need to find the right people doing it for you. So I still cannot code, but I love nerds and tech guys. So it goes like this as well. It works like this.
I can totally agree. So I'm not able to code, but I do understand technology. I think it's something different. And also, you don't need to be a coder to be an entrepreneur. And this is the most important thing, I think, about finding a company is just what you said, find the right people that help you do the things that you're not able to do. And especially in our environment, we have so many different kinds of technology. There is not really one coder that could help. So it could help, but it's not really necessary.
Because some argue that maybe in a future that is driven by technology, women might miss their chance to play an important role in constructing that future because they don't feel the need in education of computer science, or they even reject it. But if I got you well, you would say, or your advice for, let's say, girls would rather be brave and be open than go to a coding class.
I think it's a great advice to go to coding class. I mean, if you look in the future, we need more and more developers. Yeah, we need them for like artificial intelligence. You need developers everywhere. It's just a job profile that is necessary in the future, because some other jobs will not exist anymore. So you need jobs for those people. Yeah, so we need more especially in the future to come. That's what I would say.
Okay. So that would be...
I think math and science.
Yeah.
So the data scientists on my team, some of them are some of the worst coders I've ever worked with. It doesn't matter. It's their math skills that are really in high demand. And when we talk about AI and robotics and all of this, I think it's more about how to work with data, how to create mathematical models, to create solutions. So if you're super passionate about coding, definitely. And I think, like I said, technical fluency, maybe for you that is understanding how to program lines of code, but that's not a surefire, that's not a silver bullet. So I think all children need to have technical fluency as part of their education. I think that's really, and ensuring that girls, if they have interest, that's fostered at a really young age, I think that's the path I would recommend we go.
Yeah, I would agree. So technical fluency should just replace, remember in school when you had to practice your cursive writing or, you had geometry, you had to learn things whether or not you were actually going to use it. I think learning coding should be part of our basic, we should learn to think differently and engage differently. But it's just as valuable if you learned it, if you learned your geometry and you don't work in it, you still understand the concepts. And so having this fluency where you can actually be a translator, that's what I find is really challenging in small and big companies. You have guys who are great at coding, and you have people who really know the business, but they're speaking different languages at each other, and they don't understand what the other one is saying, and that leads to a lot of lost time, a lot of lost resources, because they can't communicate clearly. And when you have those integrators, when you have those translators that understand both sides, that's its own career path as well, as being able to speak both languages.
That's a good advice. I don't know if we maybe run out of time because the clock doesn't really work, but I think we definitely have time for some questions in the audience. So anyone who wants to, so I see a question over there.
Hi. So in Silicon Valley, popular exit strategy is a public offering, an IPO. I know Germany is traditionally not known to that to be a very popular option. I know you're affiliated with companies that are in different stages and maybe some past experiences with some other companies. Why do you think that is? And have you considered an IPO route for your company, and why or why not?
Anyone in particular who should take the question, or?
I guess Anna is probably the one, the most probably thinking about it, I would assume.
Yeah, so I agree. It's not that popular in Germany or within Europe. I think it's, so speaking from entrepreneurs' perspective, it's a very attractive exit way, and as Zalando has done it as well, so because you stay very independent, and you can stay very entrepreneurial, so that's why it's definitely an option. And I think so I can speak for us, it won't hold us back that it's not that popular in Germany. It's definitely some path we could consider, but as I said, currently we're not thinking about the exit or something like this a lot, because we're just too excited about the opportunities that we see in our business.
Okay. Any more questions from the audience?
Hello.
Oh, over there.
Yes. Hi, I'm Alice, and I'm a data scientist. I have computer science and electronic engineering background, so I think I'm a very tech girl. So nowadays we are talking about AI, machine learning, and tech all the time. Everyone wants to learn coding. But I'm wondering, do we talk too much about tech and all this stuff? Do we miss something and we even didn't know? So I want to know, how's your opinion?
Just generally speaking, are we missing something? I think there's this interesting conversation that's happening in the United States right now. I'm not sure where the dialogue is in Europe, but it's about the arts and science, not arts and science, but the social sciences in the United States. And where are all those people? And actually, we need them now more than ever. Because they're the ones that are going to humanize what we are doing. And I think that was a little bit of what we heard when the robot talk.
Yep.
So it's tricky, right? Because we need to understand the change that technology is creating, or that we're creating with technology, and at the same time, our humanity, I think, is the most important thing that we can be focused on, and balancing that out. I don't think we've done a very good job, but I'm really encouraged by the conversations that I'm starting to see happen, and here at this conference today as well.
Okay. Any more questions? The second row.
Hi, I'm Alma Shala, and I'm a software developer at Clue here in Berlin. And I had a question about breaking stereotypes. So there were a couple little statements that came up while you were all talking, which kind of came around guys and coding or nerds or whatever the case is. And I think that's super natural for those things to come up. But as someone who is a software developer, sometimes that can be a bit frustrating to hear those. And I think they're very ingrained. So I'm curious to hear what have any of you seen around being female engineers or female entrepreneurs that you've seen have really been helpful in breaking down stereotypes of other people that you interact with on a day-to-day basis?
I think that's a wonderful question. Thank you. I would say if you can, depending on what the stereotype is, embrace it. So, nerd used to have a really negative connotation, or a data geek. And by embracing it, you say, look, I'm a nerd and a data geek, and look at me. I don't look like Steve Urkel. I don't look like what you might expect. So if you can, depending on what the stereotype is, embrace it and give it a different face and a different name, that helps.
But is nerd male?
It's gender neutral.
It is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So
Just to make sure.
No, but it's a good question, yeah.
We, at Zalando, one of the things that we talk about is the people that build our products should look a lot like our customers. And our customers are overwhelmingly female. So we're not there yet, but this has been the thing, I think, culturally that has really helped us clue into we need to think differently. And if you're working on an all-male team and you're solving a problem for a customer, okay, maybe you don't have a woman in your group, but go find a woman, because there's lots of them all over Zalando. Ask her opinion. Just remember who you're building for, and that tends to neutralize the ego. So I think for me, that's kind of my favorite, is get outside of yourself and think about what you're doing for somebody else.
Okay, I think we have time for, well, then two questions. No, I do one question.
Sorry, that
Go
was
for
me.
it.
I have a question. If there was one advice you could give to everyone in the room in finding a feasible business idea, what would it be?
So you want us to tell us what startup to do next? Is that it?
Just wait for the
Say it again?
micro.
No, the advice in finding an idea, not giving me an idea.
Finding an idea.
Finding
Oh,
an idea.
okay. Yeah, look for where there's a need that's not being filled.
I think, one way is to get inspiration, maybe as well, still from the US. That has been a very proven model for Rocket Internet for many years. It's not working completely like this anymore, but so there are still, in the Valley, I think there's still very inspiring, good spirit, and people are working on a lot of interesting things. This is one way you can do it. So just because you ask for ways. Or the other one is to...
So wait, copy Americans?
Yes. Not copy maybe, but get the inspiration there.
Yeah.
And maybe for the Americans would be good as well to come to Berlin from time to time. And
they would love that.
Get inspired by the Germans.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably that's one pragmatic way. And another one is probably go and work for different companies, so you have insights into the problems at companies. And then I think especially in the B2B space, there are tons of opportunities for founding your own company. And these ones you get a good feeling and view on when you work for a company who has a problem in that space. So this could be a way to figure out.
Yeah, or think about things that you could do easier. Yeah, just things that you do in your normal life that are just a habit, but some habits are maybe a little bit complicated. Yeah, you could do them easier sometimes. This is what we did actually. We created a habit that how the German people like to pay. We looked at this and we had the idea to make it much easier than it was before. And I think there are many things in life, because I was really thinking lately, I was searching for some care for older people, and it is really, for example, if you sometimes have use cases where you look for something, it's really difficult, and you find that there is a lot of space for innovation there. So I don't have any time. So.
And can I add one thing, because I won't be quoted here as like advising you to just go to the Valley and copy American. But I think go traveling overall is inspiring, and not just the US, but go to Asia, to China, to there's so many great and inspiring places for entrepreneurs who have great ideas. So I think that
Excellent.
Yeah,
I mean, that's great advice, and it's fun, because as you go to different parts of Asia or Latin America, I mean, if you look at now in New York, one of the most popular new startups is called Via, V-I-A, and what it is basically, it's a nice black suburban car who's kind of like an Uber pool, but it only picks you up at the corner. And it's $5 anywhere in Manhattan. So you can go from way uptown down to Wall Street for $5. So it's going crazy. And basically what they did is copy what you do in Mongolia or in Turkey, where there's buses that go up certain roads and you stand at the corner and raise your hand and get in the bus and then tell them when you want to get out. And so it's seeing these things in other countries, and then you just say, okay, how can I do that better or faster with technology in my own place? So I love that advice.
Okay, so thanks for sharing your stories and for encourage people out there to be wonderful entrepreneur. And before planning your next trip around the world to get inspiration, I hope you get some inspiration here at our conference. So have a lovely afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you.